Hello, sports ballers, and welcome to your one-stop shop for all things Tennessee Pro Sports. I'm Dylan Simmons, joined by Grant Langston and Katherine Gorbett. It's time for Sportsballin to slam dunk like Shaq. Let's get right into the action. We'll start with Formula One, which is back in action after a history-making 2023. Last year, Max Verstappen clobbered the field like a clothesline from John Bradshaw Layfield en route to 19 wins and another championship. Now it's a race to the top in 2024 as Verstappen chases history and others chase him. We are each going to give our top 3 driver and constructor title contenders. Grant, we'll start with you.
Well, Dylan, this is going to be one of the most exciting seasons ever, and I think it's important to note that this is going to be one of the biggest seasons ever. 24 races spanning across 20 different countries on 5 different continents. This truly is a world championship. In terms of my predictions, unfortunately, in terms of interest's sake, it's not going to be changing at the top. Red Bull's going to lock up the constructors rather early in the season, followed by Ferrari and then McLaren. I feel like those two are kind of interchangeable. I'm kind of been up in the air about where I think they're going to land, but it just really depends on who you think is going to outdevelop one car over the other over the terms of the season. Same thing for the drivers. Verstappen's taking home the title. That will be his 4th, tying him with Sebastian Vettel in that Red Bull outfit, followed by Lando Norris for McLaren in 2nd place and Sergio Perez for Red Bull in 3rd.
My take is going to be kind of similar, but just a little different. I'm going to have Ferrari on top for the constructors. I see a lot of promise from Charles Leclerc. He did in testing weekend with the fastest lap. I know that doesn't really play as far as the season, but I do have high hopes for him. And then I have Red Bull as 2nd and McLaren as 3rd. And then for the drivers, of course, I have Charles Leclerc as 1st. I have Max Verstappen as 2nd because, I mean, he did dominate completely. That could be wrong, but I kind of feel like he'll be knocked off the podium just a little bit this year. And then I have Oscar Piastri for 3rd with McLaren.
Okay, interesting. For my Constructors' Championship, I'm going to go Red Bull at first because they've been virtually unstoppable over the past few years. I mean, they are the standard right now in Formula One, and everyone's trying to match them. Then I've got McLaren and Ferrari. I think McLaren is always solid, and they're going to be back with a vengeance this year. They've got some motivation. They want to take down Red Bull. And for Ferrari, I think after a somewhat down 2023, at least by their standards, I think they'll make a nice redemption tour comeback in a huge way. For the Drivers' Championship, I mean, who else? Max Verstappen. This guy's the new age Jimmy Johnson if you're a NASCAR fan, but I think that might be an understatement. 19 wins and a championship last season, absolutely took the field by storm and did it pretty easily. Lewis Hamilton, though, he's going to be my 2nd place guy. I think you've always got to respect what the GOAT can do. He'll be a huge contender this year. And finally, Fernando Alonso will be my 3rd place guy, and that might be a bit of a hot take, but I think you can't deny the natural talent that Alonso brings to the table. And remember, he's been pretty good in the past in Formula One. I think he rediscovers some of that old form this year.
Yeah, of course, in 2024, the other big storyline is the number of driver contracts that are expiring following this season.
Right.
We don't want to skip, completely over this season because there will be storylines up and down the grid, even if Max Verstappen is able to continue his dominant form. But there's so many guys that are going to be changing teams, changing outfits for going forward into 2025 and into 2026 as we get to the new regulations in the sport. So just a lot of exciting times here for Formula One.
It sounds like it, and I think Formula One is a sport that's definitely on the rise, especially in America. So many F1 fans right now. Awesome to see. Now, the Preds, they took a trip to California this past Sunday and left the Ducks stuck in a pond. Philip Forsberg had another solid night with 5 shots on frame and 1 shot on goal to his credit, and was joined by Roman Josi and others in a scoring barrage. Despite a combined 31 shots on goal, Kevin Lankinen only allowed 2 goals all night to Anaheim. Now, what did the Preds do right in this game, Grant?
Well, I'd like to take a second to point out the fact that I believe I've called out the Preds the last episode, if not 2.
You did?
Saying that I didn't believe in what they were, what they were selling until I saw some more of it. Well, since last week's episode, since we were here, they've won their last 5 games. This one against the Ducks. Very interesting fashion, a quiet first period. It was 1-1, tied going into the 3rd. But as we've talked about before on this show, the star power carried the team. Josi had a goal, Forsberg had a goal and an assist. He becomes, I think it was in the game against the Sharks on Saturday, but becomes second in Preds history behind Roman Josi in all-time points. So they've done everything right as we approach the trade deadline, excuse me. And with the performance of Kevin Lankinen that you noted, it's worth asking the question if Saros is going to be on the move, whether he's going to be, shipped out for a future pick or some assets that can help them in this playoff push.
Imagine saying that 2 years ago. Katherine, what did you think?
I think it was a great performance considering how they did a little bit poorly earlier in the season. They are on a bit of a comeback right now. They do sit fourth in the Central Division right now.
Yep.
I have predictions that they will win, but we'll talk about that in the picks later.
Central Division champions. Put the banner up. Now, what I'll say is I really loved what I saw from the Preds in this game. Lankinen played some incredible hockey, 29 for 31 on saves in this game, and he was really frustrating Anaheim all night, which is exactly what you want to see. And the depth pieces were really great in this game. Good stuff from Michael McCarron and Gustav Nyquist. Each had a goal in this game. Did a great job. And the third period was a thing of beauty. Remember, this game was tied at 1 apiece going into that final third period. They come back to win by a score of 4-2 and really just dominate the Ducks. If you're Anaheim, I think you're very frustrated by that. But it's still a great testament to just what the Preds are capable of, especially late in games. They made the Ducks so upset, I bet they felt like they spilled Gatorade all over their soup, which is something I actually did. Long story. Anyway, the Ducks really let the Preds dictate the pace of the game in the third period, and to me, that was the difference at the end. This Preds team, guys, they could make some noise if the cards fall right here late in the season. Certainly a team that's going to be a problem spot for some other teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I continue to question if they're going to be able to lean on Josi and Forsberg throughout the length of the rest of the regular season as well as into the playoffs once you start playing some of those premier teams in the league. Interestingly enough, we'll get to it a bit later when we discuss our picks, but their next opponent also coming in on somewhat of a heater, the Ottawa Senators, winning 3 of their last 4 against 3 of the best teams in hockey in the Lightning, the Stars, and the Panthers.
Yeah, should be a good one out there. We'll get more into it later, but the Preds, they're going into Enfuego mode at the perfect time. Now, when we come back, the Grizzlies try and fail to take a bite out of the Clippers, and Nashville SC looks to lock horns against the Red Bulls. All that and more when we return on Sportsballin.
Do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.com.
Welcome back. Nashville SC is also back in action, and it all started against the New York Red Bulls on Sunday. SC was taken to task on defense as they allowed New York to try 18 shots on the night, but it did come with the caveat of only managing 5 shots on goal from those chances. At the end of full time, neither team was able to really gain leverage, and it ended at a 0-0 tie. Grant, what first impression did the 2024 team make?
I would say just more of the same. It's a very similar style of play that we've seen from Nashville SC ever since they were, they've been brought up to the MLS level. And, 0-0 tie doesn't really yield you many results in terms of how the outlook of your season is going to be. I want to talk about one of the most interesting storylines here in the early MLS season, though. There's a bunch of replacement refs in the league right now.
Oh boy, well, you know what happens when replacement refs take the pitch.
There's over 60 replacement refs in the MLS right now because the Professional Soccer Referee Association was not able to reach a collective bargaining agreement with the MLS prior to the beginning of the season. So in a bunch of these matches that we're watching, you're watching a bunch of high school and college level, referees officiate these games, and there's been complaints from the players and the Players Association about how that might affect player safety and the outcomes of these games. So that'll be a very interesting storyline to follow, in addition to what Nashville can do this season.
Yeah, and I think that you talked about the replacement refs. We learned our lesson with the NFL. That's a bad idea. Please fix that. I do think that SC did a really good job of handling themselves against New York, although they did have a lot of problems, especially getting the offense going. New York has got to be kicking themselves for what they did because they had 4 or 5 serious chances that they just let slip away in this match. And they had some opportunities where the keeper didn't even really make a play on it. They just missed it. So it's definitely an opportunity that they didn't capitalize on, and it's got to be something that they'll be looking forward to in the future. But SC, pretty good job to keep it at a 0-0 tie. So good job to Nashville SC. But the Grizzlies, well, they put up a heck of a fight against the star-studded Los Angeles Clippers in LA, but they couldn't overcome their talent in the end. Kawhi Leonard and Terrence Mann combined for 47 points on this game in offense, while the Memphis offense was stuck like a boat in the Mississippi River traffic. The Grizzlies ended the night on a 6-point loss and now have to go back to the drawing board. Grant, what held the Grizzlies back in this one?
Well, I would probably say everything or everyone besides Jaren Jackson. I mean, he didn't ask for this, the superhero type cape that he's having to wear for the Grizzlies right now.
Yes.
But, 29 points, and I don't think anybody else had, I don't think anybody else was in the double digits. He's kind of, having to carry this team, and that's not a winning formula to win basketball games. We can see by their record of 20-37 on this season that it feels kind of lost, and the ship is not going in the right direction if you're the Memphis Grizzlies.
It's kind of more of the same with the Grizzlies, unfortunately. They're just not having a great season.
It's not a good season, and this was just a further display of that. You can't just have Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, he scored 29 points, but outside of him, there really wasn't anything the Grizzlies had in this game. It can't be the Jaren Jackson show. I mean, I don't want to just watch SpongeBob SquarePants on Nickelodeon. I want a diversity of shows, and we're not getting that from Memphis right now. Clippers' depth just completely outclassed them, so good job to LA, Memphis. You got some work to do. The Grizzlies, they need to come out of hibernation fast. Now, when we come back, get your crock pot plugged in because we've got our hot takes of the week. We'll be right back on Sportsballin.
This is your new kitten or your new puppy. Every day, 70,000 puppies and kittens just like them are born in the U.S. Cute, right? Well, what's not cute is that half of all litters are accidents. And when a kitten has a litter of oopsies and a puppy has a litter of uh-ohs, pretty soon you have thousands and thousands of OMGs. And that leads to millions of pets being killed in shelters each year. But if 80% of pet owners say they believe in spaying and neutering, then what gives? Well, it turns out those sweet little fuzzballs can get pregnant sooner than you think. A lot sooner. But here's the good news. You can stop the accident before it happens. You just have to remember one number. 4, as in 4 months. When you bring home Maggie or Ruby or Puddle or Clyde, get them fixed at 4 months. It can be old enough to get pregnant, and it's definitely young enough to make a difference. Prevent more, fix at month 4.
Across the country, people are joining a movement, raising their voices for those that are losing the ability to speak, walking for those who no longer can. The Walk to Defeat ALS. We're standing up to this deadly disease that strikes without warning, raising our voices for new treatments on the road to a cure. Join the movement to defeat ALS. Find a walk near you at walktodefeatals.org.
Millions of Americans are living with
hepatitis C.
People born from 1945 to 1965 are 5 times
more likely to have hepatitis C.
When left untreated, hepatitis C can cause
serious health problems, including liver damage, cirrhosis,
and even liver cancer. But half of those living with hepatitis C
do not know that they are infected. People can live for decades without feeling sick
or having any symptoms. A blood test is the only way to know
if you have it. CDC recommends people born from 1945
to 1965 get tested for hepatitis C.
And treatments are now available that can
cure hepatitis C.
We got
tested.
So, if you were born
from 1945 to 1965,
be sure to talk to your doctor about getting tested for hepatitis C.
It could save your life.
We aren't rappers, but we are still super hot whenever we bring out our hot takes of the week. Grant, what's on deck this week?
Well, I'm taking us back to the Formula One world as we talked about it a little bit earlier. The first race of the season is this weekend in Bahrain, and Max Verstappen is the favorite to get the victory. But my hot take is that there's going to be 3 different constructors on the podium, 3 different teams represented on the top 3 steps when it comes down to the end of it. Obviously, we've talked about it. I think Max is going to win, but I think there's going to be a McLaren up there. I think there's going to be a Ferrari up there, and I think it's going to be Charles Leclerc bringing home 2nd place, as well as Lando taking home 3rd.
Wow.
I wouldn't disagree with you there. I'm not sure that that's that much of a hot take, to be completely honest, Grant.
You know, I was kind of thinking that myself. The only reason I went that direction is because I feel like a lot of people would lean towards the Red Bull of Sergio Perez or 2 Ferraris or both of those cars getting up on the podium. But I think we learned last year that Sergio's not a guarantee to get up on that on the podium when you need him to.
He's not a guarantee, and I do think that there is some credence to this. But I also think that Red Bull's been so ultra dominant. It's hard for me to see them not at least getting 1st and 3rd. I don't think it'll be a clean 1-2 finish, but I do think 1 and 3 is more likely. I am with you. Max Verstappen's going to win this pretty easily, but I'm hoping mainly for a competitive race. I want to see some good racing back and forth. I'm a bit of a NASCAR fan, as you guys know, and that 3-wide finish at Atlanta made me feel really good about my sport. So I'm just hoping for a good race back and forth, and I hope that the hype that you've instilled into me, Grant, it is lived up to in this 2024 season.
Well, and there's always something to be said for the first race of the season. We're fresh out of testing. We do have somewhat of an idea that Red Bull's probably going to, start the season at the beginning of the field. But there's storylines up and down the grid. We want to see how these cars get developed, and a lot of it's about the engineering as well. So plenty of exciting stuff in Formula One in 2024.
All right, should be fun. Catherine, what about you?
For my hot take, I'm getting a little away from racing. I think that competitive cornhole will overtake pickleball in popularity in 2024. Okay. Now, cornhole, I wasn't really that familiar with it, but I saw it on a TV one time and I got into it and I did some research. So the championship of 2023 had over 2 million viewers. When I looked up the viewership for pickleball, it is less. Now, more people might play pickleball, but I think it is a growing sport. They have their upcoming season starting in April, and I think the viewership will be on the increase.
Man, look at those guys. I love how fired up they are about the glorious sport of cornhole. I mean, and also great hat. Love the hat on that guy. But here's what I'll say about cornhole. They've got some great coverage, and I've seen it on ESPN like you mentioned before. I think that's how a lot of people have gotten into the ACL, and fair play to them. They get a lot of viewership. They get some big-time broadcasters to get on this sport, and they even get some celebrity appearances. So it's certainly on the rise, and I think pickleball is a sport that people are still trying to adjust to just a bit. Cornhole, I think it definitely has the potential to get to that point, so I kind of like this hot take. Cornhole's, to me, a sport that's, well, it's hitting a perfect 10.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first saw this, I had no idea which direction to go, but I think it kind of depends on what conversation we're having. Like you mentioned, Catherine, they do great viewership numbers already. If we're talking about television audiences, I think it caters itself a lot more to that type of audience, whereas pickleball feels like there's a sport, growing sport that a lot more people are starting to play.
Right.
I would find it very hard to sit and watch pickleball on TV, whereas, you know, there's clearly a crowd that's already been established for the cornhole on television.
There's definitely some diehard cornhole fans out there, and it's a sport that definitely deserves its respect. But for my hot take of the week, I am going with college football, or actually, excuse me, that is not my hot take. Stop expanding the playoffs, but college football is a part of it. Now, here's what I'll say about this hot take. Coming off last week when I talked about the college football playoff, I think this is an important topic to bring up because in the wake of it potentially getting expanded to 14, which has been a conversation, and there's even been talk about expanding March Madness, this has to be discussed because you can't keep expanding the playoffs. It devalues and it hurts the overall scope of the postseason. People watch playoffs because it's the best teams going back and forth year in and year out. If you keep adding teams to it, it just makes it less and less. I don't even know if it's a hot take, but it is a message that I think needs to be delivered because the people up top are kind of buying into the extra revenue, the extra dollars, and not really going for where I think the heart of the sport should be. Look at what's happened to the NFL, the MLB, NBA, NCAA, even NASCAR. They keep expanding the playoffs, and I do think that it ends up hurting the overall value. Even the Green Bay Packers, they just won as the first 7 seed in NFL history to win a playoff game. So it does take a while for these things to catch on, and it's got me to the point where I'm like Jim Mora. Playoffs? I don't care about playoffs. I want good action that is the best teams going back and forth.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I was kind of hoping that you wouldn't mention the Packers selfishly because that's exactly where I was going. We've had the 7 seed around in the NFL playoffs for, 5 or 6 years at this point. We've just now seen that last team that gets that spot even win a single game.
Yeah.
The question has to be asked, do they deserve to be there? And for, it's going to open the door for the streaming apps to go after those games and more of them to be behind paywalls. It's just going to become more frustrating, and to your point as well, it elevates mediocrity. It makes the regular season not matter. It makes me wonder why I would, pay to go see a regular season game if there's going to be just as many playoff games a few months down the line.
Absolutely. I think that it also just decreases the anticipation of it all. Whenever it has such a buildup, it's going to lose traction with the fans.
It's going to lose traction and people aren't going to care as much anymore because, well, everybody makes the playoffs. I remember when I was a fan of the NFL, and I still am, but when I was a big-time fan of the Packers, and they would make the playoffs back in the day, it used to mean something, and it still does, but the 7th seed just doesn't seem as prestigious as it should be if you're talking playoffs. It used to be a big achievement in these leagues, and it just isn't anymore, and that's the problem. I mean, the NBA has 10 teams that are playing basically postseason basketball. NASCAR has half the league qualifying for the title contention. So are we really enjoying the sport at this point? I think it's more of a situation where we're just making it worse and worse with each passing year. So it's a big problem and one that has to be addressed. And if the college football playoff is expanded to even more teams, at that point, why not let them all in? Because you've already let in 14 teams, and people are only going to continue to argue, well, my team should have gotten in, my team should have gotten in. I think you've got to close the door off at some point. And if we're already looking to expand, that's a bad sign, in my opinion.
Exactly. I mean, like you mentioned, I saw articles this week about let's get it to 14, let's get it to 16.
Yes.
We haven't even seen the 12 yet.
No, we don't even know how it's going to go.
How that's going to work out. So, yeah, we absolutely have to reevaluate, but good luck getting these leagues to listen to you if you don't have a check that's bigger than those TV deals.
It's all about the cash these days, isn't it? All about the money. It's what makes the world go round. But, guys, scorching stuff, it's to be expected with our hot takes of the week. When we return, midterms are upon us, but we have the ultimate test with our picks of the week. Stay tuned right here on Sportsballin.
I was trying to fix all the things that were going on. Ryan's daydreaming, an inability to focus.
It was just frustrating to get my mom to understand what I was going through.
So that's when we talked to a doctor, and she was diagnosed with ADHD. It just explained so many things for us.
Hyperactivity isn't the only symptom of ADHD. Inattentive symptoms like Ryan's can be less noticeable. Learn more. Get the ADHD symptom checklist at keepmomming.com. Then talk with your daughter's doctor.
Keep momming.
I'm a firefighter.
A teacher.
I'm a farmer. I'm a barber.
A waitress.
A mom.
We're all part of your community. Every day we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life. It's when you experience a moment of uncertainty. something or someone's behavior that doesn't seem quite right.
These are the moments to take a pause.
Because if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not.
It's not about paranoia
or being afraid.
It's about standing up and protecting our communities.
One detail at a time.
because a lot of little details can become a pattern.
We
trust our instincts.
Just like you should.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I've won Olympic gold medals. But this is a race I really want to win.
10 people in America drown every day.
It's the race to save lives.
1 in 5 kids are younger than me.
Growing up, my mom was afraid of the water, something she did not want me to feel.
So I enrolled Missy in swim lessons.
Swimming became my passion. It changed my life. And now you can do the same for someone that you love. Drowning is preventable. Did you know that swim lessons reduce the risk by 88%? Visit usaswimmingfoundation.org to find, get, or give a swim lesson.
There's nothing more precious than your child's well-being.
So act now, before it's too late.
Make us swim!
I'm glad I did.
Thanks, Mom. The USA Swimming Foundation, saving lives and building champions.
Welcome back to Sportsballin. It's now time for our picks of the week. Let's start off with the Nashville Predators versus the Ottawa Senators Tuesday at 7.
Well, Dylan, I have learned from my ways last week.
Your mistakes.
The Preds proved me wrong, so I have to go with them this time. Now, I did mention earlier, the Senators, who have been on a skid earlier in the year, are kind of on a hot streak at the moment. They've beaten 3 of the best teams in hockey. They've won 3 out of their last 4. So I think this could have all the makings of a very interesting game, but I think the Preds have enough to get it done.
I have to agree with Grant on this one. I believe I did have Preds to win last week, and that would be correct. I have them to win again this week.
Okay, I like it. Confidence in the Preds. Now, in Canada's capital, I think it's going to be a very back-and-forth game. Like you mentioned, Grant, 2 high-scoring teams, 2 teams that have gotten better and better as the season has progressed. I think the Preds get it done 6-5 in a shootout game. It's going to be one to watch up there in Ottawa. Next up, the Grizzlies versus the Timberwolves, Wednesday at 7.
Yeah, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I think this Grizzlies team is pretty cooked at this point in the season. They're gonna yield to the Timberwolves. They will not get the victory.
I hate to bandwagon. The Grizzlies have not been proving good. I'm not going to root for the hometown team this time.
Ooh, man, even Catherine's given up. That dead horse is dead in the bottom of the Mississippi River right now. Grizzlies have no chance. Timberwolves easily win. And finally, Nashville SC versus the Colorado Rapids on Saturday.
Well, I think if you're Nashville SC, just going back to our conversation about what you can expect or what you would want to see from them this season, you have some hope in Haney Mukhtar and Sam Surridge, but you need them to continue their developing their chemistry and become one of those top attacking duos in the MLS. I do think they get the victory versus the Colorado Rapids, however, though.
I am going to go Colorado.
Going Colorado? All right.
I'm not the biggest soccer fan in general, but I do like Colorado.
All right, I'm taking Nashville. I think Nashville gets the job done in a close one. But guys, it's time to go home, but don't worry, Sportsballin is like the Golden Girls, always here to be your friend. Tune in every week right here to Blue Raider Television to catch new episodes. For Grant Langston and Katherine Gorbett, I'm Dylan Simmons saying so long, and remember to always have an electric night.